ReptiChip sets the standard for reptile substrates. Made from the highest quality coconut available anywhere in the world, ReptiChip allows enthusiasts and keepers to provide their reptiles with the necessary humidity and thermoregulation required for your animals to thrive. You can support the podcast by heading to reptichip.com/snakeboy or visit the link in the description below. This episode is brought to you in part by Exoterra. If you're as passionate about reptiles and amphibians as I am, you know that quality matters. I use Exoterra products on all my reptile and amphibian enclosures, which is why I'm excited to be partnering with them. From naturalistic decor to innovative lighting and enclosures of all sizes, Exoterra has everything you need for your cold-blooded companions. Exoterra, make your reptiles feel at home. This episode is brought to you in part by Unlimited Exotic Pets. Every day is Veranda Day for Nick Lillis, and it shows. At Unlimited Exotic Pets, Nick produces high-quality monitor lizards with a deep commitment to ethical care practices and top-tier nutrition. These aren't just pets. They're responsibly bred, ethically raised animals. Whether you're looking for a new companion, starting a breeding project, or anything in between, Nick has you covered. Unlimited Exotic Pets, keeping and breeding quality without limitations. Love reptiles? Don't miss this. If you're passionate about reptiles, amphibians, and everything cold-blooded, Reptiles magazine is a must-have. Each issue is packed with expert care tips, stunning photography, and the latest news in the reptile world. Whether you're a seasoned herpetologist or just starting your reptile journey, this magazine has something for you. Subscribe today and stay informed on the best ways to care for your scaly friends. For only $14.99 a year, you can step outside your algorithm and get exposure to things that you wouldn't normally see or learn about. My family reads Reptiles magazine, and you should too. Visit subscribe.reptilesmagazine.com to get started. This is the Expert and the Idiot podcast. If you like the show and you'd like to support us, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. Some benefits include getting access to new episodes up to a month in advance. There's also links to USARK and USARK Florida. If you're not already a member, please sign up. Enjoy the show. All right, well, welcome to episode 95 of The Expert and the Idiot. Today I'm talking to Bobby Vu. I'm excited to talk to you because you're my first big ball python breeder.
Oh, wow, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, out of the you have I think I just checked before we got on here, 120-ish ball pythons up on Morph Market right now.
Okay.
And there's 34,250.
Right. I have currently probably hatched maybe 300 animals available. I post the ones, and I'll be honest, I am about a week or maybe 2 weeks behind on posting. We come back from Tinley. We're busy from Tinley week, and then I have guests the entire week of after. So the week before and after Tinley, I usually host breeders from around the world here. So it gets really busy. So we are a little bit behind on posting. Yeah.
Wow. So I mean, what is it like being in the ball python game? Because it's, like I remember I got a pair of ball pythons and I was like, oh, maybe I'll be able to make a Pompeii morph out of this, Right. And then as like 9 months later, the value of the animals that I had bought dropped considerably. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking like, oh man, I wonder if I'm even going to be able to make any money, from this. And it was kind of overwhelming. Right. And
right.
I kind of really came to terms with the fact that ball pythons weren't for me. And it was almost like I felt like I was opening a grocery store next to Walmart,
Yeah.
Like
What year was that? That you bought those 2 ball pythons?
what year was that? 2022, I think.
Yeah. So if you bought ball pythons between basically 2020 and 2023, those I don't say I would never say like you're doomed or anything like that, because plenty of breeders got in around that time. But those were the worst buying years. The prices were high. COVID
Holla.
shot the prices of everything through the roof. People are like, "Oh, a ball python was inflated during COVID." No, it wasn't just COVID. Housing, used cars, everything went through the roof during COVID, because everyone had expendable money that was just printed by the government and given away. So, and everyone's stuck at home. There was a lot of jobs that were making 2 or even 3 times more money than that they usually make. Nursing, especially. And like the medical field, and the stock market was going nuts. Crypto was going nuts. So people were making so much money. More people were at home wanting something to do, a hobby, or the idea of being able to do something you enjoy, like breed snakes, really got them thinking, hey, I can do this. And it was like the perfect wave, because at the time, YouTubers were making videos about how much money they were making. And they were making a lot of money, because it was so easy. If you hatched any ball python during COVID, it would sell instantly. It was so easy. So the prices went through the roof, and that's not sustainable, because everybody paired every ball python they owned. A lot of production, a lot of products was out there. A lot of animals were being produced, when in reality, the year before, everything was fine. We were producing animals, we're selling them, the prices were good, they weren't ridiculous like COVID was. So there had to be a drop off, when people got back to work and you're no longer working from home. You're like, wow, a lot of these people that came in during 2020, 21 now realize I have 50 or 80 ball pythons now. And when I come home from my 9 to 5, I come home from my regular job, there's another job waiting for me. That caused the bubble to burst. They're like, man, this really sucks. When I was working from home and I can go down to my snake room and hang out, it's fun. But now you're coming home from your 9 to 5 on a Friday afternoon, you got to clean rats. And they bought in too fast. That's pretty much what happens. I do have to slow down some of my customers that come in with zero experience, 0 ball pythons, and then now they have 50. They're thinking they're going to do this for a living, and I was like, hey, let's slow it down, let's enjoy it. And good for you. You only bought 2, and you realized quickly it wasn't for you. But yeah, that the lure, of doing this full time, how much fun it looks, and all of that. A lot of times I tell people, yeah, it's fine. It's fun to breed ball pythons. Try it. It's very rewarding. Buying 2 mutations, putting them together with your kids or your spouse or whatever. And in that experience of hatching your own snakes, and then sell them, give them away to friends and family, whatever. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun. I still do that now with different species. I remember hatching my first leopard geckos in 2005. It was amazing. I mean, the feeling of buying 2 leopard geckos, and at the time I was cohabbing them in a 20-gallon tank and getting eggs and hatching them. It's awesome. But not everybody needs to do this full time, or should, or can. And not everyone needs to breed at any large capacity, because it is difficult. It is not as easy as YouTubers make it out to be. It is a lot of work, but it is very rewarding also. So sometimes I do have to slow people down. And being in this industry, it's one of the only things in the world that you can sell where you're creating new competitors. If I was selling, I used to do insurance. Okay. So when I was selling insurance, I don't sell you an insurance policy and then you go, wow, I can also be an insurance salesman. That has literally almost never happened. Right. I don't go to someone's house, let them know that them and their spouse are going to die at some point in their life. And then they're like, wow, I can also sell insurance. My brother used to sell vacuum cleaners, those rainbow vacuum cleaners, and he goes to people's houses. No one bought a vacuum cleaner and go, wow, I can sell vacuum cleaners. But ball pythons, or reptiles overall, are one of the only things in the world where people buy a few and go, you know what, I can be a reptile salesman, or I can sell these things, because it's honestly so much fun, so rewarding. And unfortunately, with YouTube, we make it look so much more fun than it possibly could be because we don't tell people the bad parts, right? How long have you been breeding and keeping reptiles, actually?
Well, so I got into reptiles back in 2011. Into snakes specifically. I wasn't allowed to keep snakes at my house when I was a kid, and when I got my own house, I just had like a whole reptile room. But I never had any pairs of anything. I was just getting like one of everything, right? So I have this giant collection and didn't reproduce anything, and then eventually phased that out when I had kids, and then as my kids have gotten older, then I got back into it. And so I got back into it. I think I got out of it in like probably 2017, I think, is when I got rid of my last snake, and then got back into it in 2022.
Okay. So that's enough experience really to that you've gone and like into some crappy situation, let's say. You keep reptiles long enough, bad stuff happens. You keep animals long enough, just bad stuff happens. Anyone with a dog or cat or, taking them out for surgery or tumors or anything like that. So that's not stuff we post, right? I don't post, oh my God, I just had two snakes prolapse or, an animal broke his jaw from feeding. Ball pythons, not the smartest animals in the world. You throw a rat in there, slings at it, and sometimes they'll hit the tank or the glass or the enclosure, whatever you have them in, and they could really hurt themselves from just missing a rodent. They don't have like auto aim or anything like that, and you have animals with impacted tooth. You have maybe a scale rot, maybe a mouth rot, respiratory infection. All these things can happen, and over the, I guess, for me now, 15 years of breeding reptiles, everything pretty much has happened. I have gotten mites years ago. I've gotten, all of these things that can happen to you, but we don't broadcast it. So we obviously, just like for any social media, we only post the good things. We try not to post the bad things in our lives. And so I think more people get into this industry when they see all these glamorous things, and that is a lot of it is our faults as even some of the bigger breeders. We try to shield new breeders from these negative things that happen. I had a breeder message me the other day. They were so excited. They had twins and egg. And I wanted to tell them so bad. I absolutely hate cutting eggs and seeing twins because one of the two usually don't thrive. And a lot of times, neither of them will. They come out so small and they require a lot of assistance for one of them to make it, usually. Twins are pretty much doomed from the start. Odds wise, they just don't make it. And it's hard to tell a new breeder because they're so excited, right? And you're like, yeah, hopefully they eat really good for you and stuff like that. And sometimes they do. Sometimes you have twins that come out of the egg and they are literally from the start just really good. But the majority of times they struggle. So just stuff like that, small stuff like that really beats down on a new breeder. But we all have to go through it, unfortunately, and this is part of the process.
When did you get into snakes? When did you start keeping snakes, and when did you? I'm assuming you do this full time now, right?
Yeah.
This is your whole life. This is your livelihood.
Yeah, it's actually very surreal. It's crazy to think that I've dedicated my entire life, pretty much my life, my wife's life, like our whole lives is wrapped up around ball pythons, one species of snakes, really. I've been keeping ball pythons, or I've had a ball python since 2006. 2005, 2006 is when I bought my first ball python. Again, it's very hard for me to, I'm trying to pinpoint exactly what month, but I was in high school. Me and you are close to the same age, so we've been right around that time. So I was in high school, and my dad says, I told my dad I wanted a ball python. And he was like, I've been looking this up and all that stuff on the internet and Googling it. There was no YouTube back then that like was teaching us how to keep snakes or anything like that. So I just went to the pet store in the mall. This was in Tallahassee, Florida. And my dad drove me out to the mall. I bought my first ball python, a piece of reptile carpet, a half log, and a lamp. And I got my first ball python that year. In 2007, I figured out my ball python was a female. So I'm scouring the internet at this point. I'm like, man, it would be really cool to, breed these. I've always had that in me, I feel like. And at the time, my parents already kind of knew I was different from some of the other kids that don't want to sit on the internet or don't want to, play video games all day. I was in the woods all day. I lived on a farm. I grew up on a farm, and I would be in the woods with a misshaped hook that I made and flipping rocks and doing all that. Again, now we call, now that I'm older, we learn it's called herping. And, you go out there and you take pictures and you ID these things. And back when I was younger, I was just flipping rocks, trying to see whatever's under it and seeing animals in the wild. I grew up on 100 acres of farmland. My parents owned a chicken farm at that time. And my friends would, invite me over to go play video games and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I have this new area I want to explore. I have a neighbor with a piece of land, that they don't ever go in. So I'm going to have this new area I want to explore. And so in 2007, I went to my first Daytona Expo. I was right fresh out of high school, 2007. I graduated high school and I drove down there and with my brother, and we had a hotel down there, and I saw my first ball python mutations. I saw, what did I see? That was the year they debuted the platinum ball python. Bumblebees were there, all this stuff, and that just got all this turning. But then, actually, I didn't even buy any mutation ball pythons that year. I bought leopard geckos. And I bred leopard geckos throughout when I was in college. I bred a lot of leopard geckos. And the money was so good back then too. Leopard geckos were selling for $1,000 a piece, $800-$900 a piece. And I hatched, so many different mutations of leopard geckos. Unfortunately, back in the day, we didn't know enigmas have so many issues. I hatched albino enigmas and all this stuff. Then when we figured out they had issues, that they were spinning and wobbling and weren't really thriving, I kind of sold off the whole collection and really focused on ball pythons. So 2009, I hatched my first ball pythons. I named every single ball python I owned based off of characters from Smallville. And 2010, 11, I graduated college in 11. But for those 2 years, like every bit of money I made from scholarships and from grants and all that stuff from college, I spent on ball pythons. I bought a spider ball, a lesser, a Mojave, like anything I can find locally, like within 5-6 hours drive. I was driving to go pick these things up. And I built a rat rack that was inside of our study room out on the farm. And my parents were very encouraging at the time because we grew up on a farm. There isn't really a lot to do. So I told my dad, hey, I want to breed rats so I can bring my costs down. And he was like, that's pretty smart. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm building a rat rack. He's lending me his table saws and everything. And, I was 19, 20 at the time and just trying to find something else to do on the farm. And my parents were super encouraging. I had tegus. I had, tegus are banned in Georgia now, which I hate. But back in the day, I ordered 2 tegus from Burt Langer Wolf. I had scorpions. I had all kinds of stuff. A berm. One animal I actually never really kept long was retics. I've never gotten to retics, but I did have berm, rainbow boas, red-tailed boas. I had just a little bit of everything, and my parents just allowed it. And because of that, when I graduated college and the job market, so I graduated college in 2011, the market wasn't very good. I have a degree in psychology and sociology. And so I just kept breeding snakes. I played poker full time and bred snakes. We just and just kept going with it until 2013, 14, when I made a little bit of money doing insurance. I really invested. I bought piebalds and stuff like that. I was really starting to invest heavily, and I have a very good sales background with doing insurance, and it just kind of took off. In 2016, I quit my day job with insurance and pursued a career in breeding reptiles, and my parents were not happy about that at the time. In 2016, I was making about $100,000 a year doing insurance, suit and tie every day. I'm from South Georgia. Suit and tie every day got old very fast, and it's hot. It's, and it's, hot and dusty, and I just got to drive to the office and go see people every day in a suit and tie. And I hated it. Actually, I hated the insurance industry because how cutthroat it is. It's just numbers, numbers, numbers. It's didn't really care that much for who you're selling to. You just know the policy. Like you've told me the customer, I remember the customers, but to the corporate office, they're just a number.
Mm,
We already know X percentage of people will die within the first 10 years of the policy type deal. So it's just number. It's a numbers game. You can see X amount of customers a day. You can sell X amount of policies a week, stuff like that. And I actually hated it. I love seeing clients and I love my clients, but I hated the sales aspect and the corporate aspect of it. And so I quit in 2016 and pursued a career in breeding snakes. And it, luckily for us, it worked out really well. I have very good returning customers that loved us, and built a very good community here in Georgia, which is, in my opinion, I tell people all the time, the community that you have is very important. If you don't have one, build one. It's okay. Just go out there and find some friends that have similar interests and build that community.
mm. Do you so it's interesting hearing like that you have the sales background, right? Which has to help with selling ball pythons, right?
Right.
And then you also have the farming background. And what similarities are there? What did you learn from having this farming background and being raised on a chicken farm to now essentially being a ball python farmer?
Um, Efficiency. I always tell people my dad was one of the best in the company when he was around. They'd always do rankings every year of farmers for the company, and he was always top three. And it's always about efficiency. Everything we did was like, let's how can we make this process, or how can we be more efficient about doing this and save money at the time doing it. And that's how it keeps you in the game. With ball pythons, efficiency isn't just trying to cut time and cut corners. It's to make your job, your life easier so that you want to do it more often. So when I tell people,
Mm,
if it takes you a lot of effort to clean an enclosure, you're not going to want to do it as often. If it takes you so much time to replace water, replace bedding, you're not going to want to do it as often. So you need to make that process so efficient that you can do it every week and not fail. So when I built my snake room, once I went full time, I'm like, okay, I need this process to be so fast and efficient and almost perfect that I can do it every week and I don't dread it. So, how can I break down cocoa faster? How can I get these water into these, fresh water for these animals the fastest way possible? So if you were to visit my facility, you'll notice water is hanging in the ceiling near every rack. You can just pull a water reel, boom. You can replace a whole rack's worth of water in 2-3 minutes. Then you're going to want to
wow.
do it more often because it's easy, it's quick. You don't have to, I have to go replace waters today. You can just like, okay, cool. Today's water replacing day is going to take me about 5 to 10 minutes per rack, and I can do all the rack, my section within less than 30 minutes. So efficiency in any type of business, especially in any type of farming environment. Again, I don't want to call it a snake farm, but essentially that's what we are. We are a snake farm. We breed animals for a living. We are a farm. But yeah, the more efficient you can be, the more you're gonna want to do it, or the less you'll dread doing it. It's better for the animals. And for the sales background, I'm not a pushy salesman, because with insurance you can't really push anyone into buying a policy because they'll just cancel it the next month if they were pushed into it. And in insurance world, if you sell a policy and they cancel, it actually looks bad on your numbers. You try to sell policies that stick. You want stuff to stick around. You want people to keep what they bought for years and years and years to come, and that's where your bonuses come in. And and the one way to guarantee that you don't get a lot of cancellations is by only selling people what they really need. I don't really try to push a ton of policy. Like you don't need $5 million of life insurance if you, you make 60 grand a year. Why are you buying 5 million? I try to sell people what's appropriate for their family at the time. If you make $50,000 a year, I know you need about $2 million worth of life insurance, $1 million to $2 million worth of life insurance for a couple. And the reason for that is I want to cover your kids for the next 20 years of their lives. If you have a 2-year-old, well, this kid's got to live off of something for the next 20 years when they go through college. So about 20 years of your income is what I aim to do. And in the ball python world, I try to do this is if a customer comes to me and looking for a specific animal, I will ask them, what is this for? What are you looking for in an animal? Are you looking for a pet? Are you looking for a breeder? And if you are looking for a breeder down the road, what type of genetics? So I try to work through that so that they can get the right animal and then not buy something that they'll regret, 2 months later and then blame the breeder for it. So I think with that process, taking an extra 10, 20, 30 minutes to get to know what the buyer needs has really helped with our business because now we get a lot of returning customers. I just came back from Tinley last weekend, and the majority of our sales in Tinley was returning customers or people I already know or have sold to before. Yeah.
Now, how do you know what the ratio is for people that are coming to you as people that want to invest in a breeding project versus pet keepers? Do you like mark that down? Do you track that to see what percentage you're marketing to for pet keepers that are just, I want a pet ball python? But then are there people that get a pet ball python and then they want to a year or two down the road say, hey, you know what? I kind of want to breed these.
Yeah. So used to, when I first started 2016, full time anyway, so 16 to about 2018, I was selling maybe about 80% pet market and about 20% breeder market. And the reason for that was at the time I was breeding, I want to say like top tier animals or anything like that, but genetically not as superior animals, and I say superior in this way of like not as gene stacked, not like, I'm not saying like genetically as in like flawed or anything. But at the time I was new, like the best animals I would have produced would have been in about that $1,000 range. And I was producing a lot of pets, pet quality animals. Anything under $300, in my opinion, is about a pet grade animal. That $300 is a really sweet spot for someone that is just wanting a really pretty pet. They're buying a blue-eyed Lucy or a single gene pied. That usually is a pet. So at the time I had just gotten started and I was thinking in my head, well, $300 times, 7 babies is $2,100. I did, 50, if I did 50 clutches a year, I can replace my income, with, about $200,000, about $100,000 in income. And I did not anticipate that, within 2 years, I'm producing, $2,000 and $5,000 animals that was going to really push this whole thing forward. But when I first started, it was about 80% pet market. And then I was vending a ton of Repticons. I was vending any show I can get myself into, honestly, at the time. I was vending 30, 40 shows a year from 2016 to 2019. In 2019 was our craziest year. We did 40 shows. And I was running myself pretty ragged at the time, 40 shows a year. I was getting myself out there. I wanted to build the brand and the name. But then in 2019, we were starting to produce, higher end animals, your $5,000, $6,000 animals. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, I can notice the shift happening where more than half of my animals I was producing were for the breeders market. I had already become kind of a household name at the time. I was already building my name in the Southeast anyways. People already knowing me, who I was when I come to a show. So about 60 to 70% of what we produced was becoming breeders market. Your $500, even my $300 stuff was gene packed. So people were wanting to use them as breeders down the road. But now, by this year, the majority of what we produce, other than hets and misses, where we're aiming for this crazy combo, and we're producing a normal that's like triple het. Other than that stuff, the majority of what we produce now is for the breeders market. I do produce some byproduct, when I say byproduct, it's like we missed this gene, we missed this gene. So it's a one gene animal or stuff like that. For that stuff in my Patreon alone, I wholesale off to my Patreon members that are basically starting off where I did in 2017. Is they're vending a lot of shows. They don't have enough inventory. So I would, sell them a package for a show or something like that to get them started. Vending a lot of shows is very difficult because your inventory, let's say you hatch 30 clutches, but you already sold off all the best ones. So now you're going to the next show with not your best stuff. So you do need to buy in, and buying in animals to resell. It sounds terrible because in this industry, we kind of villainized it and we're like, this guy's a flipper. This guy's a, whatever animal flipper. But in reality, if you bought your first animal from PetSmart, Petco, whatever, it's essentially the same system, except these guys that are buying from me know where the animals are coming from. It's a quality product. It's quality animals. And I can guarantee its health, genetics, and all of that. So I'm selling it back to someone that I know will take care of these animals because these are my Patreon members or fellow breeders that know what they're doing. I'm pretty careful on who I wholesale to because I don't want my name attached to someone that's going to abuse the animal or not, to not take great care of it. So, but yes, the majority of what we produce now I would say would be for the breeders market and not the pet market.
Interesting. And you mentioned earlier efficiency. How do you balance efficiency and ethics in regards to care for the animal, like their existence, as being an animal that is expected to breed and reproduce?
So efficiency, in my opinion, helps with that. For me anyways, right? I can't speak for anybody else or any other breeders. Efficiency for me helps me with that type of ethics because I know I can reasonably keep X amount of animals. Because when you tell someone that you own 500 ball pythons or something like that, whatever your number is, in their mind, they're thinking, dude, this guy's a hoarder, or how can these animals even be or these animals be taken care of in, any proper manner? But I don't know that I've ever had anyone visit my facility and go, wow, these animals are in such bad shape, which I've been to those facilities. I've been to facilities where they're like, I was like, oh my God, this guy needs to downsize a lot. But because of the efficiency, if you go down to my snake room, you'd be hard pressed to find a tub that is dirty. I have 2 employees full time that takes care of everything that helps. But because of the efficiency, each of them are able to take care of so many animals in comparison to someone that keeps one animal, because a person that keeps one animal might spend 30, 45 minutes a week cleaning that animal. So in their mind, they're like, well, if I'm spending 30 minutes to take care of one animal, how can this person take care of 500 animals? There's not enough time in the day. Well, it doesn't take us 30 minutes to take care of one animal. I can do a full change out in less than a minute, because I have tubs already preset. On a Monday, we would preset 200, 300 tubs with cocoa. We would break down enough cocoa to change out 200 to 300 tubs at a time. And so because of that efficiency, I can change out every single water bowl in our entire collection, within 2 hours. That's the entire collection. So I can sit there and, with a water reel, and I can just change all the water out if I had to in one sitting. So with the efficiency, you can take care of these animals, in my opinion, better and faster. So you do it more often. I tell my guys, if I open a tub and if I think it's dirty, it needs to be dumped. And so now I let them use their own judgment. So a tub needs to be dumped and cleaned out entirely. So we try to go for about 20 to 25% of the entire collection gets dumped every week, so that every month, every tray is swapped out.
Interesting. And so how would you recommend somebody that's just getting into breeding? What would be the ideal ratio for male to females? What would you recommend they focus on? Are there certain morphs that are always going to be popular that you've noticed that if somebody wants to get into this, like how many females would you recommend they get? How many males? And what would be some morphs to focus on to get started? With this, keeping in mind, this is just like a normal regular everyday guy. Doesn't have $20,000 to drop on snakes right off the bat, but wants to get started and wants to get into ball python breeding.
Right. So the first thing I tell people when they want to get into ball python breeding is do it because you enjoy the species, right? Don't look at the money aspect so much because obviously, like you said, it discouraged you when you saw the price drop, right? But realistically, if you were to have bred those animals, you would have made money because you're not producing one more animal. On average, you're producing 7 more animals per pairing or per clutch. But if you're really into this, you really like it, and you want to do a little breeding project with your kids or your spouse, it's just something to have fun with. You don't need $20,000. You can go in for $2,000 or even $500. You can probably get a good project going. So the way I do is any project that I start, like any new project where I'm like, wow, man, this is a really cool new mutation that I want to work with. I try to get 2 males and 5 females. You want to grow out around 5 females. That gives you the best chance to get eggs within the next 2 to 3 years. Those females grow. It takes about 2 to 3 years before you can get eggs. So anyone thinking they're going to get into this and get rich quickly, think again. It takes 2 to 3 years before your females lay eggs. And that's just if you are good at this. 2 years, 3 years is if you're good at this. If you're not good at this, it could take you 4 or 5 years before you see any eggs. And that's why I get 5 females, because out of those 5 females, one of them might be a terrible feeder or grower. Some animals eat, but they don't grow nearly as fast. They won't grow nearly as big. And just like people, there are people that grow quicker than others and get, hit their growth spurt faster than others. And you always go with 2 males because one male might be lazy. I've had males I've grown out for a year and a half. They get good size, they get good muscle mass, and they just don't breed. While you'll also have a male that's the sibling to that male that eats every other week. He'll skip for about a month, and he's just a slow grower. So you always have a backup male, a backup option. In the worst case scenario is both males become great breeders for you, and you just rotate them out. So I always tell people 2 to 5 is a very good ratio for any new project. And for mutation wise, it changes a lot because we are kind of a trendy business. In some years, people really like high white pieds. Some years, people like low white pieds. And depending what's on TikTok, right at the time, people might like Pompeiis, people like desert ghosts, people like jet black snakes. It does change from time to time, but one animal that has withstand the times since I've been in the industry is blue-eyed Lucy's. The year I got in, yes, blue-eyed Lucy's was high, but when it leveled out to about that $300 range, I can still sell right now blue-eyed Lucy's for $275 off the table, and I can sell so many of them. And I've been doing this for 10 years of selling blue-eyed Lucy's, $275 to $300. During COVID, they did get to that $400 cap for about 2 years, but right around that $300 range is a really good sale. So blue-eyed Lucy's, in my opinion, has withstand the times. And pieds, people love pieds. We sell a ton of pieds a year. They're eye-catching, and they pass the grandma's test. You put a beautiful pied next to a clown, most people would choose the pied. And most average people that are not into ball python genetics would choose the pied. The clown factor, anyone that gets into ball pythons will hear about clowns. The reason clowns are so popular because it gives you a bigger palette to work with. It gives you an option. You can make really bright animals, really dark animals, really contrasty animals. So it gives you a little bit more options to play around with. But looks wise, a new person would most of the time pick a blue-eyed Lucy or a pied over a clown. So that's for your pet market.
So if somebody is coming to you, and do you pick up on if they are just seeing dollar signs? Like they're just like, oh man, I listen to these podcasts, I go to the shows, I like reptiles, but I like money more.
Yeah.
Can you sense that? And how do you approach that? Do you just sell them the snakes anyway? Do you try to force, maybe coerce them in a different direction or find out where their passion lies? How do you handle that?
So passion is hard to gauge. It's hard to gauge passion. But I can definitely sense somebody that's not a reptile person. I'll tell you that. If you're not a reptile person, I can tell. If you're not if you're only a ball python person, which I've met hundreds of, they go in and all they see is potential for a business. I know those type of people too. And I can usually gauge based on me asking why you like reptiles or why are you into ball pythons. I can be like, oh, what are you looking to? What type of projects are you looking into? And they will pretty much rattle off every mutation that Justin or Miguel, whoever's the YouTuber, has posted recently. And sometimes I'll invite him herping, like a big customer that wants to visit the facility and stuff. And I was like, oh, you're coming over on a Saturday? You know, the weather looks nice. You want to go outside and flip some rocks and stuff? And they're like, absolutely not. You know, that's disgusting, blah, blah, blah. I'll tell you right now, if you can't enjoy herping, it's so tough for me to be friends with you long term. I have a lot of friends that don't herp, so it's not a big deal. But it's difficult to be in the long run and not be a true reptile enthusiast. You know, I'm talking to some of the guys like Justin Kabilka, you know, he made videos. I think he made YouTube videos in the early 2000s where he was showing off scorpions and you know, garter snakes and all these other things he kept in his apartment. And Justin is a true reptile nerd. That's why he's made it this far in this industry. He's truly a reptile person and enjoys every facet of it. You know, I went to his house and he has bolins, pythons, retics, and all these other species. A lot of guys come in and the first thing they go to is ball pythons because of the money. They're seeing 5,000, 10,000, seeing all these flashy numbers. And you do weed those guys out. I do still sell to them because at the end of the day, I am a business. I have 3 other people that depend on me selling snakes to make a living. I have 2 full-time employees plus a rodent employee that depend on me to sell animals for them, to get a paycheck. But sometimes I keep an eye on those guys because how long can your want to make money outlast the pat? Like for a lot of us, even when the money is bad, I'll tell you now, when I first started, I didn't make a lot of money. Me and my wife now, the first house we lived in together was 900 square feet, and it was tiny, and it was this rundown house because we weren't making any money at the time. And I was trying to pursue this career in something I really enjoy is reptiles. But when the money was bad, it was still okay because I still got to hang out with reptiles and reptile people all day. So I was okay. We were okay with that. And so when the money gets bad, like during COVID, like after post-COVID, 2023, 24, you see a lot of these guys get out. And I don't want to say the majority of them, but I want to say more than half of these guys never were into reptiles in the first place. They were so into the money that when the money dried up or got bad, the market, took the dip, that they got out because, the only reason they were in the first place was the money. They didn't really care too much for the reptiles. And I'll be honest, man, it's easy to make a living doing this in this industry. It's easy to just make average living. Even when the market's bad, making an okay living is not that difficult. Throwing 2 animals together, they produce, you sell 7 babies, you're going to make money. But when to make a good living, to make a lot of money, it is more difficult. It requires marketing, requires being at shows, requires real effort. Then those guys are like, man, I'll just go back to my IT job or a teaching job or, whatever they were doing before because that's easier. And so some of these guys that didn't really have it in them to do reptiles, they didn't really care for reptiles that much. They got in because of the COVID money. We watched a lot of those guys leave the industry, and it sucks because I became friends with a lot of these people, and to watch them sell out their collections because the money dried up, it really does suck.
Is that what dropped the value in your opinion? You had mentioned before that, people were kind of working from home and it was easy to maintain a collection and work from home. And then once they had to migrate back to the office, well, now I have to work this full-time job and then come home and work another full-time job. And so were people selling off their collections and then that kind of burst the bubble because people were just, I have, hey, I've got this huge, 30, 40, 50 animals that I need to offload. Is that what kind of dropped the value, and has it recovered since then?
Yeah, so that's one of the factors. So I think, in my opinion, there's a few factors that was the bubble of the ball python bubble, if you will. That one of the factors is that people were selling out of their collections. They paid $100,000 for this collection, and now they just want out from it, and they'll offer the entire collection up for 20 grand. So these wholesalers would go in and buy these collections for 20%, 20 cents on the dollar. Then they'll go resell it at 50 cents to the dollar and make a profit. And so these animals are still at half price. So these animals are dropping in value quickly because of that. The other factor was that in 2020, 21, 22, no matter how many animals I produced, how many animals I put together and produced how many eggs, I ran out of inventory. Every show.
Hmm.
I'd go to a show in Houston and sell $30,000-$40,000 worth of snakes, and it was all under $500. It was easily. And because of that, more breeders, the bigger breeders were like, wow, we need to breed everything. If they had follicles, it was a female, it was getting paired up. And so we overproduced for those that year. And so moving into 23, 24, as these new money vendors or new money breeders were quitting and leaving the industry, that customer base kind of dried up, and we overproduced. So now there's, at one point there was 60,000 ball pythons on Morph Market at one point. That was the peak of it. It was about 60,000 ball pythons on Morph Market, and because we were all overproducing. I did not overproduce, luckily, because every year we managed to sell out, but I already had an established customer base. So for some of these guys that didn't establish their customer base, but they were only able to sell because of COVID, now they're like, wow, where am I going to sell these animals to? They have no salesmanship. They didn't develop any plans. They don't have any tables at shows, so they didn't need it. You can just post it and sell it instantly during COVID. So that's the second factor. It's just overproduction at the time. But now it has leveled off some, right? A lot of these breeders have already quit or leveled down their breeding or downsized. A lot of our overseas market has started booming. So we send a lot of stuff overseas to kind of slow down the US market as far as production goes. I've talked to quite a few of these reptile farms that are like, okay, we were producing 500 clutches a year. Now we're going to do 400, 300, 200, whatever. Some of these larger production facilities are cutting off about half of their production, which is going to help the industry out. And I've noticed 2025 overall, our sales are up. Our percentage sales are up. We're selling animals faster. Wholesalers are wanting to order more, and I run out of inventory. I had to turn down a big wholesale order the other day where someone's like, hey, I have, shows coming up and I need about 50 animals. And I tell them straight up, I just don't have it. I just don't have the wholesale inventory for them right now. We don't hatch fast enough. So, I feel like there's going to be a turnaround point. A lot of this is economy dependent. So depending on how our economy does overall, the U.S. economy does overall, the global economy does overall, it's going to change our overall reptile market a lot. As the Chinese market opens up, the Japanese market, how they do will determine a lot of this, because a lot of our animals do end up in the Asian markets and the European markets. I'm actually hosting 3 Europeans here today, the 3 Brits. They're staying with me for the week. And then about a week ago, I had 2 Korean breeders that were here. So
Wow.
the foreign markets that also determine a lot of what happens here.
How much of your stock is sold, to countries outside the U.S.?
About more than 30% of my inventory.
Really?
More than 30% of our inventory goes overseas currently.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you feel when people suggest that the ball python industry or the market is still overproducing? That there's animals that are in rescues and things like that, right? There's ball pythons available everywhere. When people bring that up, what's your reaction to that?
Sure. There are a lot of animals on the market. There's a lot of animals in rescues and stuff like that, but that's almost any animal market. It's all pet markets. Okay. That's dogs, cats, tortoises, bearded dragons, leopard geckos. That's every single market. You can go to, I used to work at an animal sanctuary. I said work. I volunteered at an animal sanctuary. Sulcata tortoises and bearded dragons were the number 1 animals getting dumped at animal sanctuaries. Tortoises are the worst ones, in my opinion, because they can endure a lot. When people call an animal hardy, that means it can endure a lot of abuse and still live. That's when you call it a species, it's a very hardy species. Yeah, that means it can endure a lot of abuse and still survive. Then that's a bearded dragon and sulcatas. So that's all markets, pets, all pet market, cats, dogs. I go to animal shelters and I actually hate going there. Because the amount of dogs that are being euthanized over there constantly. We focus on the reptile side, obviously, because we're reptile people. But how many dogs get euthanized a year, and there's still people breeding them, And but the ball python market, the the thing about the ball python market is no one really truly buys one ball python. I don't know many people that own one ball python, but mainly because I'm a breeder. So people are able to house more ball pythons and stuff like that. But you can imagine we're only 4% of the pet market. Reptile pets as pets, we're only 4% of the market. So in the U.S., even if we were to somehow double our market share of the overall pet market, we would all be out of reptiles. We would all be out of babies to sell. And the way to do that, and the reason that it's growing, in my opinion, that I don't feel like there's a problem, is because with us owning a 4% share, and now with TikTok, Instagram, and all these social media, it's becoming more acceptable to own reptiles. It's less taboo to own a snake. 30 years ago, you own a snake, you're a freaking weirdo. Now I go out and I tell people I breed snakes. So many people tell me, oh, I have a cousin that has a snake. Oh, I have a snake, and stuff like that. It's less taboo to own a snake. And with snake discovery being as popular as they are, reaching a wider audience, you have these YouTubers going out herping and these YouTubers showing pet snakes and stuff like that. I love it because it's growing our market. So if our market was to even go up to 6%, 7%, we would sell out of reptiles. So I don't feel like we are at that capacity where we're way overproducing. We can never get rid of these animals. And then on top of that, when I say I export animals, as Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, Europe, but never China. China hasn't opened its doors back up since 2019. It was, I think, 19 or 18, late 19, 18 maybe, is the last time we shipped a package to China. China closes doors after COVID and hasn't opened back up. The Chinese market, pet market, opens back up, and we would be out of inventory again. You're talking about a billion customer base. And then the third factor, there's so many layers of like where this could go, or where it could go horribly wrong, right? There's one way it could go horribly wrong is if the government just goes in and just shuts it all down. Government goes in and says, hey, no more ball pythons for you guys. Obviously, I don't think that will happen because ball pythons are such a, it's not even on their radar. I had a meeting with DNR before, and they're like, we're not even looking into that. They care obviously about the big snakes, the big lizards, and some turtle species. But yeah, so it's so many different factors of this. But if certain countries open up, if the economy does better overall, where people have expendable money to spend on pets, it automatically opens up the gates for that. Different markets that don't even allow ball pythons right now, like in Spain, they don't even allow people to keep ball pythons. In China right now, currently, you can be arrested for having ball pythons, and they're fighting pretty hard over there. Yeah. In Vietnam, I visited Vietnam with my wife 2 years ago. Yeah, so been the year before, not this past January, but the January before, we went and visit Vietnam. And I visited a few breeders, they're showing me their collections. And then I was like, oh, this is really cool. When are you guys going to have a show? And then I find out keeping ball pythons in Vietnam is actually illegal. However, no one really cares that much. So they don't really market that they have ball pythons or anything like that. But so people just keep them. But once Vietnam opens up, which is very soon, because the breeders over there have been pushing the government into opening up ball pythons because of the amount of tax they'll make from these sales and from imports. So once these countries open up their markets, it would alleviate a lot of the U.S. market, as far as sales go. There's naked Scott walking around, but yeah, one of the Brits. Yeah,
that's man, yeah, that's really wild. I didn't know that that China, you couldn't own a ball python. I mean, that would be insane if they open that market up. That would be wild.
Yeah. So I actually saw an article where someone got arrested in China for keeping ball pythons. He had a collection of like 80 ball pythons, and he got arrested, and it was like projected to do like 2 years in prison for owning and breeding ball pythons in China. Yeah.
So how many adult animals do you have altogether?
Less than 600 for sure. We did a count the other day. It was less than 600, and I just sold off about 20 breeders to a friend. And now we're constantly growing out new animals, but it's about 500 and some change adults.
Wow.
That's between breeder males, breeder females, and animals that are over a year old. I consider, into that are not babies. Anything that's not inventory, we have over about, yeah.
Golly, what is your food bill like?
It sucks. Oh, well, It sucks. We do produce most of our own rodents. So I have a rodent facility about 45 minutes from here. And every Monday, my rodent guy, Robert, will just deliver rodents here on Monday. We feed off, and whatever's not fed off, he brings back home and throws back in the racks. Yeah, the food bill sucks. Feed alone, bedding alone, all that. It's like $1,000 a week. So yeah, it does suck.
Jeez, man. And have you noticed, like, you have to notice more than like, I notice like my food bill for my family has gone up, within the past, year or two. And do you see that? Like, is it more obvious to you, like seeing the feed increase and all that? Is the cost of power going up as well? I'm assuming that your power bill has to be enormous as well.
Yeah, the power has gone up significantly over the last few years, especially in this county where I live. And then the feed bill. So I remember when I first started breeding my own rodents, like at any large capacity when I was ordering feed in, I was able to get feed in for about $13 a bag. This is from FRM, Flint River Mills. So I was able to get feed in for $13 a bag. That's 50-pound bags. And then we're paying $25 a bag of feed. And so yeah,
that's like double.
Yeah, it's double price in feed. Bedding has gone up, but it's not significantly. Right, we went from like $4.99 a bag of bedding to now it's like $5.99 or $6, six something a bag of bedding. So it didn't go up a significant amount. Again, we're just using I guess wood chips. So it's not as bad, but the feed costs for sure and the power costs, and then even tubs costs. Like back in the day, you can get a tub from Home Depot if you're using those Home Depot tubs. They're like $2.99 a tub for those concrete mixing tubs. Now they're $8 a tub to replace. So stuff like that. Wood obviously has gone up. So if you're building wooden racks, pre-COVID, 2x4s were probably a third of the price. That's why building costs has gone up, housing costs gone up overall. Employee costs gone up. Right now, I tell you right now, if you try to get an employee for $10 an hour, you're probably not going to find anybody. Not anybody quality, so that's why I pay my guys well. I pay my guys well to make sure I don't have to train any new people. I haven't had to hire anyone new for a few years because I just like to retain the same exact guys. I know my guys, I trust my guys, and I don't want to have to hire anyone new and train anyone new.
How do you handle biosecurity at such a scale?
Biosecurity, depending, I've seen breeders that never buy in new snakes. I went to a facility years ago, about 3-4 years ago. I visited, and they haven't added a new gene to their collection in like 5 years because they had an outbreak of mites or something. And so they just don't bring in new animals. We pretty much know how to treat most of the things that come in, mites, respiratory infection, or anything like that. So we just quarantine them, spray them down, get rid of, like any animal that come in here. I don't care who I buy it from, is going to get a good washing and a spray down for mites. Because collection my size, if I got mites, it would be a nightmare. Right? I would have to be cleaning everything constantly and switch everything to paper and all this stuff. And then recently I heard of a breeder switching all his stuff to paper because they had worms and stuff like that. So everything come in here, they'll get dewormed, and they'll get treated for mites. And if they show any symptoms, then we keep an eye on it, and we have antibiotics on hand at all times. So it's just to take care of small things like that. Like I have animals come in, and if there's even a scale blister or something like that, we treat it immediately with some antibiotics. And just if you treat it early, most of the time it's very easy, especially with ball pythons. Ball pythons are one of the easiest animals, in my opinion, to treat on this stuff. I've seen people treat burms and green trees, and it's like a long, drawn-out process. With ball pythons, they either recover really quickly or they don't. I'll be honest. They go downhill fast or they don't. And you run antibiotics or a dewormer, and it usually just takes care of it. Or it doesn't, right? But one or the other.
What about serpentovirus? Do you ever do any testing for NIDO?
So currently, I'm trying to think of the company I'm working with now. They're a new company, and I was working everything through Fish Head, but now golly, I just sent off my samples to them last month. I met them in Tinley, and they test for 20 something different viruses. We just do a swab, one animal per rack. And it's kind of randomized testing. So it's not as
Sure.
good as, like, obviously if you were to test, obviously every animal every year, but I just pick one animal per rack, a different slot in every rack. And then we just do a swab and we send it off. And I'll find the company for you later, or it'll probably pop up to me in about 20 minutes and I'll yell it out. But we have a very good pricing point for them because we test in large quantities. And so about every quarter, I send off samples just to check the collection. And I have some breeders go, well, why quarterly? If they're negative, they're negative. There could be false negatives, or they could also be that the animal's not showing any signs, or it doesn't show up because this animal hasn't been stressed out. So from my understanding of Nido, is that an animal could be perfectly healthy. You could look at an animal, it eats great, it poops fine, it breeds, but it carries the virus, and it doesn't show any symptoms until you stress it out a lot. Stress it out enough. Shippings, taking it to a show and stressing it out, then it starts to show symptoms, it blow bubbles, and then knock on wood, we've never had any of these things happen here. We haven't had any major issues with Nido or any of these major diseases. What's the other one? We don't really get crypto in ball pythons, right? Anything like that. But we do periodically test here. It's very simple too for any of those that you looking into testing. I can try to send the link of the testing company here in a little bit. I have their card down in my snake room. It's just a cheek swab, or I get a saliva swab, and then you send it in a tube that they send you, and they run the full panel for all the viruses that are known that they have, are able to test for, and it's fairly affordable. I think even if you're only doing one sample, I think it's $50. So because we do large quantity, we get the price down pretty good. So yeah, it's fairly affordable for most collections to do.
Now, have you had a positive test show up before, and how did you react to that? Or if you were to get a positive test, what would be your protocol?
So for Nido, no, I've never had an animal test positive for Nido. And I've seen some breeder like post that they've tested positive for Nido on some of these things. If I was to have an animal tested positive for Nido, I would just put the animal down. From my understanding, there's no cure. There's no way to treat the animal like clean of Nido. And because of how large our collection is, if that was to spread, like one animal in a rack, then all of a sudden the entire rack, then second 2 racks, 3 racks, we would have to pretty much quarantine the entire collection at that point, and then we wouldn't be able to sell anything. I would just put that animal down. So if this was to happen, so this would be the procedure. If I found an animal that's tested positive, all the animals in that rack would then have to be tested. We just assume at that point, it's just like mites. If you find one mite, you pretty much assume your entire collection has mites. You just treat everything. Mm-hmm. So then you'd have to pretty much test every animal in that rack, every animal that animal has been in contact with. So with the female, you would just assume that male has it too. So stuff like that. So you would have to pretty much euthanize a lot of animals if that come back positive. And then you'd pretty much shut down your facility sales wise for at least a quarter, because now you don't want to take the risk of shipping out any animals that are testing positive. So my baby room is about, what do you say, Scott, about 100 feet away from my adult room. So there's about 100-foot walking way between my baby room to my adult room. So it's quite a ways. And then adults don't really go into the baby room. Babies don't go into the adult room. So we don't unless an animal is going from grow out area to the adult area, then yes, they move. But then my grow out area is also 50 feet away from my baby room and 50 feet away from my adult room. So animals don't really move from one section to another. Adults lay eggs, they go in the incubator. Why are so many shirtless men in my house now?
What were you guys doing last night, man?
It's early morning. These guys are just waking up, and it's like there's just random shirtless guys walking around my house. Yeah, great party last night, guys. But yeah, so that's how we do it here. And if it was ever, and I knock on wood that never happens, if it was ever for a test to come back positive for Nido or anything like that, it would be, unfortunately, we'd have to euthanize the animals. There's not really a treatment for Nido currently.
Yeah. Now, I know that you are a reptile lover. I mean, you've got so many herping adventures up on your Facebook and everything. So, like, do you keep any other species, or as far as keeping, is it just ball pythons?
As far as keeping, I keep a lot of other species, and this will be my first year attempting to breed black-headed pythons. And I've bred garter snakes, leopard geckos, crested geckos, lychees. We sold some chahuas the other day. What else do we have down there? I keep a lot of species, but I don't breed a lot of species. A lot of them is just keep for fun, you know. And the herping part is just like I like to see animals where they are at in the natural environment of living under a mattress in Florida, or, you know, stuff like that. And it's just like, and I like to just go out there and see and kind of experience what they're going through. Like these animals, sometimes it's interesting that you'll find a snake living in the middle of the desert. There's not a water puddle anywhere. And this animal is just thriving out there. And you're watching these lizards every morning, 6 a.m. They'll wake up and they'll come out there and lick the dew off of these cactus. And then tree, you know, small shrubs will have dew on it, and these animals are thriving out there just every morning, going out and licking the dew off of the trees, and there's no water anywhere. And you know, when I visit any country I visit with my wife, she knows now. Any adventure, any trip that I book with her, there's probably a little bit of herping going on. We visit Japan in April. We were in Tokyo for 4 days, and then she booked us to fly out to Okinawa for 5 days because she knows I wanted to go herp. So we stayed in Okinawa and drove around at night. And to my surprise, she found both of the snake species that I was targeting. She found the first habu, and then the second, the hime habu, she found in the shrub while I was doing video and a picture of a newt that I found. I found this newt. We're cruising. I saw this newt. I jumped out of the car. I did 50, 60 pictures and videos of this newt. And while I was doing the video, she was like, "Hey, I found a snake over here." And I'm like, "Snake?" And sure enough, she found this habu, this highly venomous species, sitting in a shrub, just hanging out. And yeah, so to my surprise, she found both of our target species herself. So yeah, the herping is if you haven't ever done it, for any reptile people that, you know, you're a keeper and you haven't ever done it, and you're like, you know, you're watching my videos, or you're watching a herper's videos, you're like, man, I wish I could do that. You really can. You don't have to go anywhere far. No matter where you are in the United States, there's probably some herping to be done. Even in Alaska in the summertime, you know, I have friends in Canada during the summertime that herp and find a lot of species, you know, milk snakes and snapping turtles and garter snakes. But if you are in the South, especially if you're in Texas or Oklahoma, Missouri has great herping too, Tennessee, just go out there, go out into any WMA, you know, any wildlife management areas, in any park, anything like that, and just go out there and go on iNaturalist. The app is called iNaturalist, and you put in your location, and it will tell you what other herpers have found in your area, and where. They will pretty much pinpoint where you can find certain species, and that's how I find a lot of the species. I'll go on iNaturalist, and someone found, you know, a hognose or copperhead or whatever species it is that you're targeting, and you can pretty much pinpoint where to find this animal. And just go out there and just see these animals in the wild, but be careful. I tell people, be careful. I keep on seeing this video of this girl that went down to Florida and got bit by a cottonmouth because she thought it was a python, you know. So look it up, look up the species that are there, and be careful what you do, but go and appreciate them. You don't have to touch them. Don't touch them. Just go out there and appreciate them. Take pictures, videos, whatever, film. And if you do recognize a species, maybe if you're like, it's a corn snake or, you know, a king snake or whatever, you want to pick it up, just pick it up and appreciate it. Look at its battle scars. You know, you're picking up these scarred up animals or with ticks all over them or whatever, and you know, just appreciate them. But if you if you don't recognize the species, then maybe don't touch it.
Have you been able to herp for ball pythons yet?
I have not, and I don't know that I will. I'll be honest, because ball pythons are pretty remote in Africa, right? You have to fly in, and you go to Ghana or you go to Togo or whatever, and that's not an adventure I really look forward to, because I talked to Dave Kaufman. He did not really enjoy his trip that much going to Africa or into the remote lands like that. And there's so many other countries and so many other species I would like to see on my bucket list. I still haven't herped Australia. The bucket list is Australia, Thailand, um, Greece, and how most of South America I haven't been to. I've only done Costa Rica, Central America. I've done Chile. I've done Japan, Vietnam. So there's so many places I haven't been to. I don't know that Africa is going to make the top of my list quite yet. And there's so many
Mm.
species there that kills you, and there's so many things that kill you there. It's just not quite the top of my list.
What do you think about locality ball pythons? I think that that's like a super cool thing. I think that if I sold that pair of ball pythons that I had gotten, and I think that if I ever get ball pythons again, I would like it to be an actual locality animal, just a normal locality ball python.
So unfortunately, for locality ball pythons, there's not really too much of a difference color wise or mutation. Like with garter snakes, not so much locality, it is species difference. But let's say someone tells you they own a garter snake, then you're like, well, what type of garter snake? California garter snake, Oregon spotted, Florida's blues. There's a lot more difference in that. There's not so much a locality difference in ball pythons, right? You're like, oh, well, these are from East Togo or South, wherever. There was only realistically one locality specific ball python, which is the Voltas, which people are like, oh, these are sub-Saharan, which is a really dumb thing because all ball pythons are sub-Saharan. You're not finding anything north of Saharan desert. In ball pythons, all ball pythons are sub-Saharan, but they're, people market them. Oh, these are sub-Saharan ball pythons. They get bigger than the others. When realistically, it's just probably an old ball python. I have some older ball pythons down there with huge heads on them, that are 6 feet long and, 5,000 grams, but realistically, that's just an older animal that just grew bigger. I have ball pythons down there that are 7 years old that are under 1,500 grams because they just don't grow big. Some of them don't grow big and some of them will grow big. I have 3-year-old girls down there that are 4,000 grams, so some of them just grow bigger and faster than others. The locality, unfortunately, for ball pythons doesn't show up very well. Like species like retics, right? You have your mainlands and you have your different locales and even your berms and your stuff like that. But in ball python, unfortunately, there's not a lot of locale specific things like that.
Yeah, I think I know Stephen Tillis has some that he actually collected himself, and I think he sold some to Eric Kohler. And I think that's really it.
Mm-hmm.
out of those 34,000 animals on Morph Market,
Dr. Tillis.
Yes, yeah, Dr. Tillis.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Stephen. I worked with him quite a bit back in the day. Probably for about almost 12 years now, actually. The first time I met Stephen, he was working with Eugene, and this before he was a doctor. And I've been working with him since, and then I don't think he hasn't been with Eugene since he graduated. But yeah, I've been working with Stephen for a while. And I remember when Nido came through his collection, it was just heartbroken over that. He was doing a lot of carpets, and then he had some wild-caught berms and stuff down there too, and it went through his entire collection. It was really heartbreaking.
Yeah. We went and visited him and got to see his facility and everything, and it was really cool. He's definitely bounced back. He's got a lot of animals now.
Yeah.
So what catches your eye outside of ball pythons that you think you might want to get into breeding?
Golly, it's tough because the business is ball python focused. So the other stuff would just be like a breeding for fun. Like, oh, I want to see if I can breed this species, and it'll be like a passion project where we don't make any money, which I don't care for. Because where all the money comes from ball pythons. But right now, black-headed pythons are so interesting. I really like the way they act. They act almost like a colubrid. They're built almost like a colubrid. It's just a big, like a big king snake, almost like I feel like black-headed pythons like a big king snake. They're kind of jumpy when you open the enclosures. I have these 7-foot enclosures that they're in, and when I touch them, they kind of spaz out a little bit. But once you take them out, then they act like a python. It's like they're slow and they're very methodical. I'm really liking black-headed pythons, and I really do enjoy my garter snakes because they're just so interactive. They're always out in front of the cage. You can open the cage and they come right out at you. So I really like that, right? Because that's the total opposite of ball pythons. They bask, they kind of you cohab them, and they kind of have interactions with each other. They all have their own little personality. Like my females are extremely bold and will come to the front of the enclosure when you open it to feed them. The males are kind of shy and they kind of just hang out in the back. So I'm really liking those species. The other day I was looking at some locale specifically ground boas. I'm really liking those. I didn't buy any. I didn't want to jump into it. So I was just kind of like looking at those. The Madagascar boas are really cool. Yeah, even the tree boas, and I talked to MJ about some chondros and stuff like that, but really haven't really jumped into anything. I kind of want to see what I really enjoy. I don't want to be one of those guys that buy 20 chondros because everyone else is doing it. I don't really get peer pressured into any species. During COVID, golly, the chondro market blew up. You're talking about animals that were selling for $2,000-$3,000 were $8,000-$9,000 during COVID. So a lot of ball python breeders actually jumped ship and moved over to chondro market. And I found that interesting. I don't know if they think it's easier money, because I'll tell you right now, chondros are so much harder to breed than ball pythons. And I've never bred them. I've never tried. But chondros, I'm watching some of these guys that are experts. I'm talking to some of these guys, and to get a baby get started, they're scenting babies, and they're using geckos, and they're prolapsing and regurging and all this stuff that we don't have to deal with ball pythons. With ball pythons, they come out of the egg, they shed, I throw a mouse hopper in there. 90% of the time they take it. Every 1 out of 200, 300 babies you have to assist feed, and then they just usually pick up or they don't, and it's so simple with ball pythons that I don't know that I would go to any large capacity for any other species. Chondros especially, that's a tough market, and I really want to congratulate MJ for having such a big season, and Bill and all these guys that do such great job breeding chondros. But for anyone that does ball pythons that are jumping ship going, I'm going to go make money in the chondro market because it's easier. It's you're in for a rude awakening. It's not an easier market by any means.
Yeah, just a higher price tag per animal, right?
Right. It's a higher price tag per animal for these breeders, for these high-end breeders, right? For guys like Bill that's been doing this for 20 years, he has built that reputation. He can demand line bred animals for $5,000-$6,000, whatever. But you're just a new chondro breeder. You're competing with a guy that also got in with you in 2020. You're not really demanding that much more money than compared to a ball python, honestly.
Yeah, it's another example of opening a grocery store next to Walmart.
Exactly.
It's hard to keep up. What are your favorite morphs right now in the ball python?
So when I first started, I was always pied because that was my biggest investment animal. But currently, our biggest projects that we're working here is Azanthics. So I work Azanthic into a lot of stuff. I do Azanthic clowns, Azanthic DG clowns, Azanthic pieds. We made Azanthic lace for the first time this year, and they're selling really well because they're very pretty. And the goal at the end of the day is to make an animal that's pretty, that will remain pretty through its life. Ball pythons have been known for years for hatching really pretty, and then as an adult not look nearly as bright as it did as a baby. But now we have the ingredients to make an animal that looks just as good as a baby, as an adult. And the way to do that is adding genes like lace, desert ghost, mandarin, stuff like that will maintain color. Back in the day, the only thing we had was pastel that made things brighter. But then as they age, they become more brown. They start to lose some of that color. I'm not trying to shit on pastels or anything like that, but now we can fix it. Now I have a female down there that is pastel, but she's phenomenal as an adult because she's also a white lace. So you're adding certain genes that interact with each other well, and we have enough data. We know what genes work well with each other. So now we can make ball pythons that will age just as well as adults as they did when they came out of the egg. And that's the goal. So I've been telling people white lace, mandarins, Xanthics got such a bad rap back in the day. So when I was back in the day when I was first getting into Xanthics, a lot of my fellow breeders or friends would say, those brown out really bad. You get a nice silver animal as a baby, and then as an adult, they're brown. Well, now we know if you make a desert ghost Xanthic, it's black and white as a baby, and it's a little bit less black and whites in an adult, mostly because the yellows come in just a little bit. But now we know, okay, what if I add lace to this? Then it'll be remain a black and white baby. As an adult, it'll be black and white. So we can retain a lot of these colors by using the combos of desert ghost, azanthic, lace, mandarins, and this stuff to try to make a prettier looking adult. Because I don't want anyone to buy a snake from me and then 2 years later and be like, hey, this is what it ended up looking like, and it's not even close to the same animal they bought.
That was like my spot nose clown. It was like every shed I was like, oh man.
Right. So that's the goal, is to make an animal where every time it's shed, you want to custom like, wow, it looks even better now. That's
yeah. So how do you stay ahead of the ball creating new gene combos, and like how do you are you tracking this? Are you trying to figure out like, okay, this year we're going to take this and this and breed it to this and try to create this new combo that's going to be better and improve, like how do you work that into your daily life?
So with ball pythons, there's so many genes. There's new genes that come out pretty much every year. It's like keeping up with the Joneses, right? Like, do you want to pick up this new gene because someone else did? With us, all decisions here are made based on my kind of like instinct. I was just like, okay, I like this new gene, so we're going to invest heavy, or I don't like this gene because I don't think it will get anywhere, and I've been wrong before. There's I'll be honest, I dropped the ball on monsoons when it came out, and I'm like, this gene's not going anywhere. No one's buying this stuff. And then it blew up, and all these cool combos are coming out. And there will be genes where I pick up heavily, like back in 2014 or 15, I bought my first desert ball python, and then we found out they were infertile, and I'm $4,000 in the hole. So it's just kind of an instinctual thing, but most of the time it has worked out for us. I will look at two genes and say, these two genes look like they would be compatible and make a really pretty animal. And I would run that project. And then, fortunately for us, the guy leading the industry for ball pythons is Justin Kabilka. And his vision has to produce different combos has worked out well for us, where he'll produce a really pretty animal. Luckily for me, I live 2 hours from him. And anytime I visit, I kind of go through the tubs and go, all right, this is the new hotness. And then I would take that project and tweak it just a little bit with my own twist, and try to go a different route, and do that. And it's worked out pretty well for us. Overall, you kind of have to have your own vision. I'm working a project right now where every breeder thinks it's going to be absolute garbage. But I think there's a way to make it look better. And I'll just throw it out there, everybody. I've already made hets for it, so I don't really care. I'm trying to make a desert ghost azanthic sunset. Everyone knows sunsets turn horribly brown as adults. Even I don't like them that much, but an azanthic version should be just kind of silverish, rusty. And then a desert ghost version should retain all that color and retain it as a pretty adult. Who knows? Or it could be an absolutely horribly brown animal that no one wants to buy, that I just wasted 5 years on. So, So sometimes you just kind of have this vision for this animal of what it can do. And then sometimes it fails. I've done a lot of projects where I'm like, oh, this is going to be an awesome project. And I produce an animal where I'm like, oh man, I definitely shouldn't have done that, and just produce another brown animal or gray animal where you can't even tell what genes are in it. Back in the day when we're just stacking genes, 6-7 genes, you just produce a gray snake where you don't even know what genes are in there, and there's no way to prove it's in there or not without genetic testing. And I hate doing that. So I want to produce animals where you can visibly see the genes, appreciate each gene individually in that animal, without muddying it up. So that's each animal you kind of have a different vision for when you pair them.
How do you guys handle feeding? Are you doing live, or do you euthanize the feeders before feeding?
So I feed everything live here. It's just faster. It's I don't want to say, like, I don't want to use any reasons of like, oh, because it's more natural or anything like that. It's just faster for us, and it's efficient. So every week he'll bring in about 800 feeder rats of different sizes, between smalls all the way up to mediums and large. And so he'll bring in about 800 of those rats, and then he'll bring in whatever number of mice we'll need for the babies, and then weanlings and pups for my grow area. So roughly in 1 week, we'll feed off about 1,500 rodents a week. Between
Jeez.
babies and adults. I feed one section. I feed one section of my area, which is the holdbacks. It takes me about 2 hours. And then I have an employee that feeds only breeder females. Then I have an employee that feeds all the babies, stuff like that. So they kind of split off and do their own thing. And the reason we do that is like you feed your animals every week because you know the patterns. Certain animals, you'll have certain animals that only want to eat small meals. You have an animal that will eat anything you throw at them, they'll eat. And then you'll have an animal that maybe prefers this sizing or prefers, will only eat if you leave a rodent in there for 3 hours and then you come back and it's gone, So each animal is a little bit different. So if you feed the same animals every week, you should know its pattern. You should know what it prefers. So like it sucks when one of my guys are like, hey, I'm vacation for a week and I'm feeding their section and I'm just like assuming and dropping rodents in, I'm like, all right, this looks good enough. And I come back and the rat's still there. And I message him like, hey, this snake, it shows that the snakes eat every week. Why is it not eating today? And he goes, oh, that snake only eats small meals. So then I have to swap out the rat to a smaller rat or whatever. And it's rare, but it does happen. But yeah, that's how we do the feeding. It takes about 5 to 6 hours on Mondays every week.
So everything eats on a weekly basis?
Yeah. So I feed everything once a week, except for my holdbacks. Holdbacks, I actually feed a little bit different schedule. So my area, I'll feed on Monday a smaller meal, and then on Thursday I'll feed again on a smaller meal. So the holdbacks, I try to grow them out to pass that weanling stage pretty fast because baby ball pythons take the longest, basically from hatching to about 500 grams. That takes forever because they're eating such small meals. They're eating 10, 20 gram meals. So I split out their meals to 2 times a week on 2 smaller meals, and it seems they digest better that way. They don't get literally as sluggish eating this bigger meal. So they eat 2 smaller meals, and it seems like from the data I've collected, it seems like they grow a little bit faster and better with muscle tone. So we switched to this about 2 years ago, and I've noticed my animals are growing better, growing faster, and breeding better. Overall, their muscle tone feels better. It's not like a fatty snake. It's like a good muscle tone snake. So the 2 times a week schedule really works good for the ones growing out from that 100 grams to about 500 grams. They feel a lot better.
And are you keeping them on ambient or do they have a hotspot?
Everything has a hotspot here. I've done ambient years ago, and I'll tell you right now, it worked just as good. If you done ambient or if you ran hotspot, the ball pythons seem to not really care, and they eat, they digest, they grow, they do fine. The only difference in my opinion, between running ambience and hotspot is you're miserable running ambient down there because ambient, you want to run about 84 degrees, right? Keeping these animals digesting well, cycling well, about 84 degrees. And 84 degrees is pretty miserable to work in when you're there for 6 to 7 hours a day, washing cleaning tubs or whatever at 84 degrees is terrible. So we keep our snake room around 78 to 79 degrees all year long. And then winter time comes, we might be like 77, 78. But all year it's going to be 77, 78, roughly, anywhere between 77 to 79, roughly. And then the hot spot is going to be around 90 degrees. We run panels on everything.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Man, I can't imagine the power bill, man.
Oh, the power bill is ridiculous. It's 1 year. So when we first bought this house, this was 2022. So when we first bought this house, we talked to the power company on that. They put us on level pay, so you pay the same amount every month. By the end of the year, they dropped us from level pay, and then they charged us an extra $3,000, saying, "Hey, you went way over what you were projected to." And we use a lot of power here. We end up dropping, and have a 400 amp power service here, and yeah. So this house is on 400 amp, and because we running the pool and the fountain and all this other stuff, and it's a fairly large house. We have 4 AC units in this house. So, running 4 AC units in the summertime, and all that. Actually, count with the snake room. The snake room has 2 separate units plus the mini split. Oh, we have 6 AC units in this house. So if you're running 6 AC units constantly, stuff like that. My snake room is very well insulated, surrounding, but it's still runs a lot of power just to keep it maintained. And with as much heat that it produces too, in the summertime, you really have to cool it because you have thousands of feet of heat tape, being heated up at a time, or heat panels being heated up at a time. So it heats up the room so much, then you have to cool it back down in the summertime. The good thing is in the wintertime that the room heats itself because so many heat panels are heating up the room. But so wintertime, we really barely run any heat, but plus we're in Georgia, it doesn't really get that cold. But yeah, summertime it's obnoxious. I'm paying someone's very good mortgage every time I pay a power bill.
Wow. What are the dimensions of your snake room?
My snake's room is about 5,000 square feet total.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Between the storage room. So there's a storage room that my dog lives in at night. My dog stays outside during the day. It's an outdoor dog. And at night he comes inside to sleep. But so I have the storage room. That's where we stage everything. We roll out all the inventory into the van from there. Then we have the main bay where the black-headed pythons, the shipping's done. Then there's the holdback area. There's the washing stations. We have a room for just my geckos, a separate room for the geckos. Then we have the hatchling room, which holds almost at max capacity. I can house up to 1,000 babies. We've never been at max capacity, but I can house up to 1,000 babies if we were ever in that situation. And then we have the adult bay, which is on the other side of the room, about 100 feet away. It will house up to, I'll be honest, when I built the snake room, I had visions of like doing 1,000 clutches a year at one point. And I realized I definitely don't want to do that. So I built the room to be big enough and have enough power and space to run up to a 1,200, 1,300 breeder females. And then I decided I never would want to do that because I would lose the joy of hatching snakes. So we ended up scaling it way back to do 200 something clutches, which is still a lot of babies, but that's how many I can sell very well. And I don't get stuck on babies. About 200 clutches is really good, 250 clutches. But the room itself can hold up to, to produce 1,000 clutches, which is about 1,400 breeder females if I need it.
That is crazy, man. So you're producing about 1,200 babies a year?
About 2,000 babies a year.
2,000 babies a year.
Yeah. We're over 7. Wow. We're over 7 eggs per clutch. So you're at, let's say if you average 7 eggs per clutch, you do 300 clutches, which is 1 year we got close. We did 299 clutches the year before, and then last year we did 240 clutches. We scaled back a little bit based on the market, and then last year we ran out of inventory. By December, I had like no snakes left. So I ramped it back up this year. So this year we're going to do a 270 clutches. So I kind of scale it back based on how the market feels. So we're going to do 270 clutches this year. And right now we're low on inventory. I say low with 300 baby. We have 300 babies for sale. But when I send out packages of 25, 30 animals at a time, it really cuts it down fast. Like my next shipment next weekend, it's 60 animals. So it's going to take down a good chunk of our inventory. I gauge it based on that and can kind of predict how many animals we'll need for the year.
The scale of this is just really fascinating to me. I mean, it's a 5,000 square foot building is like, I can't even like comprehend what that looks like. The amount of racks.
When I first moved into this room, I had even more racks, and then I have enough room here to probably put 2 other small, decent sized collections into the room without even it looking cluttered. I run power down the spine of our rooms too, so the room's very wide. I run power down the spine in case I needed to run racks down the spine of the room back to back, where we can make aisles if we wanted it to. We've never done it, but we could. When I designed the room and I was telling my electrician, hey, I want power in the ceiling. I want power. All of our powers are 5 foot high, so like at face level for me. So that the thermostats don't have to extend, like the thermostat can just sit up front of the racks. When we designed the room out, it was specifically so that I can produce 1,000 clutches a year. I built a walk-in incubator. The incubator will fit 200 clutches in it at a time if you needed it to. I've obviously never filled it up because that would have been like my entire season. But I designed everything in mind that I can do up to 1,000 clutches if I wanted to. And I never actually thought about it. And I never want to, if we were to expand. But honestly, if you are ever in Georgia and you want to visit, just let me know. I'm about 20 minutes south of the airport. I'll come pick you up from the airport, come check out the facility. yeah, I'm really proud of it. It's a really nice facility, clean facility, and the overall like aesthetics of it, really enjoy it. Yeah.
So you're in Atlanta?
I'm south of Atlanta, right outside the city. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm down in Florida, so we drive up to Georgia. So at some point, I'll have to hit you up and let you know when we're coming through the area.
Yeah,
'Cause
come through because honestly, yeah, you're where in Florida are you?
I'm like 90 miles south of Tampa in Sarasota County.
Oh my God, yeah, I fly down there to go herping all the time because right outside where you are is, it's great herping actually, and all the invasive species are there. You got chameleons and anoles and all, Cuban anoles and all that stuff around there. But yeah, if you ever to drive up, and honestly, you should drive up next year for the Southeast Reptile Expo. It's a really good expo. We have, we're trying to expand out the species that we're, having there. A lot of complaints of people going to expos is too many crested geckos and ball pythons. Usually that's the complaint. So now we pretty much capped the ball python market. And again, I want to throw this out there. I do not cap the number of ball python breeders so that I can do better, in ball pythons. That's not the goal, because at every show there's a ton of ball python breeders. We're capping the number of ball python breeders so that we can add the other species, so that I can add retic, so that I can add knobtail geckos and all these other species. Because when someone comes to a show, and they're new to the reptile industry, they're brand new, like there's someone that doesn't know anything about reptiles, I want them to come to the show and have options and see all these other cool species, not that there's only ball python in our industry. I want them to see what is the potential for this. Okay, you can breed knobtail geckos and still have a good time, or breed, whatever you want. These dwarf monitors. Dwarf monitors, one of my favorite. King gorums, one of my favorite species in the world, and so I'm probably going to try to do a colony of king gorums. But yeah, there's like talking about all these other species. I want new people, especially, to come in and see this, not just ball pythons. Even though I'm a ball python breeder myself. But yeah, it's going to be a really fun show if you ever decide to come up to Atlanta for that show. But yeah, come up and visit sometime the facility and just check out the scale of it all. There's so many breeders near you, especially since you're in Florida, that are at a way larger scale or a way different type of scale. But yeah, this is just a different type of breeding facility.
So is the Southeast Reptile Expo your expo?
Yes, I am actually the promoter or the owner, whatever you want to call it, for the show.
Wow. And how many years did you say that?
We've only been going for 2 years. This is only coming up on our 4th year. And so it's kind of surreal. Like, people are like, we're becoming like a household name for the Southeast, I guess. But we've only had 3 shows. We feel like we're so new to this. We're still making so many newbie mistakes, marketing mistakes. Like, I think one show we dumped like $3,000 into Google ads, and Google actually called us and was like, your ads suck. Like, literally, like, you guys are not doing anything right. And we had to sit down with their marketing team and was like, okay, what do we need to do? And my buddy Daniel, who does all of our marketing stuff, was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. And then so he's starting, like, again, he's not a marketing guy, he's an IT guy, but then so now he's getting the whole new experience of the marketing side of like, okay, so this is how we do our ads. These are the best ads, type of images, type of videos that do the best, best interactions. So we're learning all of this on the fly. We just threw the show together, the first show, without any experience or knowledge. Yeah. Luckily for us, I've vended 200 shows before, so I have some experience, obviously. And I have friends that are show promoters. We've been very lucky with Sean Gray and Brian Potter and Bob Ashley and Rami from California, is giving us advice. And it's been a blessing. Honestly, the show has been going really well. Our last show was in August, and we had a little over 9,000 people there. Wow. So it's really not bad for our 3rd show ever, to have about 9,000 attendees. And then in February, we're hoping to do the same or better. And then next August, we'll have even a bigger show because we'll have more space. We rented out the entire venue. And hopefully we can get more vendors in there of more species, more. There's one vendor that's going to be there doing herping adventures, like type deal and stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot of different facets of the industry, not just ball python breeders.
So your you're promoting this, you're running the show, but you're limiting the amount of ball python breeders that can go, and that's what your specialty is.
Not so much the specialty. Like I think every show does it now. That's become an ongoing, like a new thing. Not new, but like even if right now, if you're a ball python breeder applying for tables in Tinley and ARBC, good luck, because those breeders, first of all, those ball python breeders are not going anywhere. These guys have had their tables for 20 years, 15 years, or whatever. So we're not giving up our tables in Tinley. But
Yeah.
as a promoter, we have to understand that not, for the buyer experience or the attendee experience, you don't want every other table to be ball pythons, because it becomes boring, or it becomes, okay, it's just more of the same stuff, especially when you don't know what you're looking at. You're a brand new person, brand new keeper, and you're going into the show and it's just every other table is ball pythons and everything's $5,000, every just breeders. And the second thing is, if there's so many ball python breeders at a show, so we had 140 vendors. If let's say 50 vendors, which is a lot, like more than a third of our show, if 50 vendors were ball python breeders, none of them are going to make any money. That's just the reality of it. You have 50 ball python breeders in one room. None of them are going to make. One breeder might make some money from the other breeders, but then most of the breeders will not make money. So we have to be conscious of that too. I want my breeders to make money. I want my vendors to make money. If they're going to pay me for tables, obviously my job is to put as many eyeballs in front of their inventory as much as possible, but also that limit their competition so that they can make money. If you put 50 ball python breeders in one room, it's a struggle, other than Tinley, because Tinley is such a big market, and it's the show's been going on for 25 years now. So we have people fly in from around the world to buy ball pythons there. So it's a little bit different. But for a new show that's trying to get new eyeballs and new people into the industry, you cannot do 40-50% ball pythons, because no one's going to make money. And luckily for us, and for a show, from a show promoter perspective, one way you can do that is by having more vendors on the wait list. You have more options. Now I'm looking through my wait list. I'm like, cool, let's get this bug guy in, or let's get this Clubert breeder in, or hognose, so that you can diversify your show so that everyone makes money. That's the goal.
Yeah, and it's more interesting for the people attending the show too, right? And even if you're not looking for a hognose snake, at least you can say, "Oh, cool, here's some hognoses."
Right. I saw that on TikTok. I get to take a picture with it, right? And I saw that retic on TikTok. I saw a huge snake on TikTok. I want to see that. So you have a retic breeder there. You have a black-headed python breeder, which is really exciting for the in my opinion, really exciting to have a black-headed python breeder. Jim Sargent, he's phenomenal, and he has so much experience and knowledge. But to have all these other species be represented, not just ball pythons, is really important.
So, I mean, where do you? It seems like you've grown obviously so much in the last 9 or 10 years, right? Since 2016. To the point now where you're running shows, you've got this enormous facility, you've got your own rodent facility just to supply, your animals with food. Where are you going from here?
So when people ask me all the time about the show, like where it's growing to, and people message me constantly about, come to this city. We called it the Southeast Reptile Expo because I wanted to let other show promoters know I'm not going to be expanding our show to the other regions. I'm going to stay in the Southeast. The only other area we even remotely looked at for like 5 minutes was possibly Florida or Houston. But now that's kind of like, our team was like, can we just stick in Atlanta? I'm like, actually, I would prefer to just stay in Atlanta. So I would just want to grow this show into as big as possible. I would love to get, 15,000 attendees out here. And I would love for 10,000 of them to be brand new people. I want them to be people who just saw an ad on Facebook or saw our billboard or a banner and just come out to the show and never even consider a reptile as a pet before. Like I said, our industry is only 4% of the US market. 4% of US households have reptiles as pets. Can we grow that to 6%? And the only way to grow that to 6% is to expose more new people and people that are not into reptiles into the good and show them a good time when they go to an expo. And here's the reason why I even put the expo on in the first place. Like, did I need to do an expo? Definitely not. And the only reason I did an expo is because I want people to have a good expo experience the same way I did in Daytona when I was 18, 17. as I went to an expo and I was so excited. I met Brian Barczyk there for the first time. This was 2007. And if you've ever met Brian Barczyk in person, and there's a camera on him, especially, this dude's energy is like infectious. Like his passion for the reptiles is infectious. So, and I want someone new that has never seen reptiles or seen reptiles as a pet to come into our expo and go, wow, this is a legit industry. This is a legit hobby. These are legit breeders. It's not a swap meet. You're watching all these like beautiful animals displayed on, in good displays. They're not in a deli cup with a net over it. And then there's griminess and dirtiness. And, we've all been like, as a reptile keepers and breeders, if you've been to enough shows, you've seen those displays where those animals probably sat in there for an entire week from one show to another, which is disgusting. And we've seen some breeders that are questionable that shouldn't be at expos. So that's why I put on a show, so that we can avoid that. I don't want anyone to come in and look at our industry and go, man, this is like a swap meet. It's disgusting. It's just people, it's skin trade, and I want people to get excited about it. I want people to buy, when they buy their first reptile, it's from a reputable breeder. It's from someone like good, that's going to take care of them. Like, the one thing that will ruin any kid's aspirations or passion for reptiles is buying a reptile. It dies, and pretty much the breeder going, oh, sorry, the kid, can't do nothing for you. And because I produce so many animals a year, if that was to ever happen, which again, you sell enough animals, that will happen. Someone kills an animal or it just dies, it just happens. It's the animal game. And you can replace it, or you can help them, walk them through the process. Like, they call me and say, hey, my animal's not eating. I say, send me a picture of your setup, and walk them through it. So we kind of, I try to do the best job as I can, looking for quality breeders that will do the right thing when they need to. Like, they buy an animal and it dies, or you buy an animal, it doesn't thrive. What would this breeder do? So I can read through their reviews and stuff like that. And the good thing about our show, and we've been very blessed, is that we have a lot of vendors that want to vend it. So I can go through the list and go, well, that's a really quality vendor, let's add them. Or this vendor has negative reviews, we don't need to add them. Because we don't need it. We don't need bad vendors at our show. I don't want anyone to come in and buy an animal that they're not satisfied with. So that was the point of the show, is to put on a quality show that will help grow the industry. I don't want anyone to pay for a ticket and then feel like they got ripped off, they got a bad experience from the show. I want, when you pay for a ticket and come to our show, I want you to be like, wow, we really got our money's worth. I got to see 150 quality breeders that were knowledgeable, I had a vendor at our show. I don't want to brag about the show too much, but I had a vendor at the show spend so much time with kids, teaching them stuff that the kids weren't buying anything. And he was still teaching them so much. I'm just watching this vendor just like put snakes in people's hands just to handle it. People come in, you always see someone come in and say, oh, I'm afraid of snake. I'm deathly afraid. I have a phobia. I just came here to look at them to see if I can get over it. And then when you put a ball python in their hands and it just lays there and does nothing, and this person lights up and they're like, wow, these animals are chill. They're not out to get me. That's the experience we want. And it's we've been very blessed, like I said, to have this to have the show go as well as it has. We've had 9,000 people through the door last time that all mostly had good experiences. We did have a few people say they were a little angry they didn't get to meet Snake Discovery, but other than that, the show went really well.
Do you plan on incorporating anything else to the shows, like talks or anything like that, like educational things?
Yeah. So because of the limited space, the first few shows we had with the limited space, we couldn't do a stage and we couldn't get guest speakers and stuff like that. So down the road, once we're able to get the full venue, which is next August, if we can book the ballroom and if we can book the showroom, I would love to get like a guest speaker. So our goal right now, I guess my dream, my unicorn would be to get Jeff Corwin to come out. I've been messaging him hardcore. I've been talking to some of these educational, I don't want to say just like YouTubers, but like like in my opinion, are good for the industry. Like I've looked up to Jeff Corwin, man, most of my childhood, watching his
Sure.
videos, and so like we're getting someone like him, or getting someone even like Bob Ashley, who's been doing this for a long time and written so many books, to come out and be a guest speaker. I would love to do a panel talk, but that's down the road when we have the space and once we've built the customer base for it. I don't want a guest speaker to come out and see 30 people. I want a guest speaker, like especially like Jeff or like Bob or some of these guys that have been doing this a long time. I want their time to be valued. So when they come out there, I want 500 people sitting in the stands listening to whatever they're saying. I don't want. I've been to shows before where they have guest speakers come in and there'll be 20 people sitting out there, listening. And I'm like, it feels like a waste of their time. And I want to value these people's time. So I want, like, we had Snake Discovery come out in August, and kids started lining up to meet her at 6 a.m. And we don't open the doors till 10 o'clock,
Oh my
and we
God.
had easily a thousand kids lined up waiting to meet her. And so I want to value their
Jeez.
time. I want to make sure we have the customer base for it and the marketing that we're going to put behind it to market these people that are coming in, to make sure that it's going to be a successful event.
Damn, man, you've got so much stuff going on. It's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
That is crazy. I mean, just there's so many. I mean, there's so many expenses there.
Yeah.
That it seems like you're really investing in the hobby, though. You're investing in future keepers and trying to get more people into it.
Yeah. So the show itself, the first show we ever did, we dumped so much money into it. We didn't know what we were doing. We're buying hundreds of banners to put out there, and oh my God, the yard signs we put out. And then the city of Atlanta is extremely picky about that, so they just threw them all away, stuff like that. And it's just like, I was very okay with breaking even on this project. Like I was telling our guys, okay, we spent $1,000 on this type of advertising. As long as we can get this amount of people through the door, we'll break even. That was the goal, right? At the end of the day, it's like, if we can get 8,000, 7,000 people through the door, we did good. As long as, or whatever. And if we can break even at any point, it's fine. And we've been lucky. We've been blessed to be in the profit margin for our shows. But yeah, in order to put on a good expo, you do have to put in a lot of money in. And these other shows are starting to recognize it, and they're starting to advertise more, which has been great. But yeah, our venue alone is $50,000. I went
What?
out. Yeah, the venue rental alone is $50,000. I went out there and I found the best venue, in my opinion, for Atlanta. And I inquired, and they let us in, and they've been they've been great to work with. The Gas South has been great to work with, but it's $50,000 to rent the venue.
Dude.
And then online ads alone, we spent $10,000 on one ad last time. It was one ad, and I said, let's pump the heck out of this ad, and we just dropped $10,000 into one ad. To get flyers, we ordered 10,000 flyers every show. A full color front and back flyer. By the time you ordered 10,000 of them, and then posters, and then banners, and then all these other expenses. It gets pricey, but it's worth it. It's so worth it, because if you can get another 1,000 new keepers every show you do, oh, it's so worth it. You're adding an extra 1,000 new pet keepers or future breeders or whatever it is. That's how we're going to grow to 6% of market share in this industry. You don't grow by just selling the same ball pythons to the same guys every week. It's the same keepers buying it from you. Like I said, I go to Tinley's, the same returning customers that buy from me, which I appreciate. I love my customers. I appreciate them very much, but I also want new customers. So, that's how we get new customers, is to advertise wider. So I just do, okay, cool. We're going to put $10,000 into this ad. That means everyone in Atlanta at some point is going to see it. Atlanta area, I don't say the city of Atlanta itself, but all the surrounding areas of 6 million people, from the city of Atlanta, and if you expand it out 50 miles, whichever way, is 6 million people. So I can advertise, just pinpoint Atlanta and just advertise within a 50-mile radius, and I can reach 6 million people with my ads. Think about how many more keepers we could be adding to our industry, and how many more eyeballs, and how many more, how how many more Bob Vu's can I, hopefully build down the road that can be passionate about this to keep expanding this industry? Can we get to 8%, 10% of market cap? Can we grow it to where ball pythons or reptiles overall is not so taboo that, every other kid in that class has it? So, when I was growing up, because I was the weird kid because I had reptiles as a pet, especially in the Asian community, I was the only Asian kid, with reptiles as a pet. And it was kind of taboo, and the black industry, the black market, black reptile owners overall, African-American owners overall, it was very taboo. So I'm in a group for African-American black reptile owners group. And they always tell the stories. Yeah, I grew up and I was the only black kid in my neighborhood that likes reptiles. And it's very taboo, but now it's becoming a little bit less and less, right? Because there's more representation out there. They're seeing more people like them. They're like, oh, there's also me being represented. Because when they were growing up back in the day, it was only Steve Irwin and Jeff Corwin's, two white guys. So they don't see themselves as keepers. But now when they go online, right, there's, again, I don't care how you feel about him, but Tarzan, real Tarzan. He's out there and they're like, okay, that's a little bit of me that I see. Or Christian, God, I forgot Christian's name, but it's a big herper also. It's a young black man that's very educated, and he's showing that it's not just white dudes doing this, which again, it's a huge part of the market. But now we're able to expand it out, right? And then now the Asian markets are seeing this, going, oh, we can keep them too, and it's fine. So the Asian markets have been expanding. It's like we want to expand this around the world. We want to expand this in the United States. So we need more representation and grow this thing, not just kind of gatekeep it. A little bit of it was gatekept in the 90s and early 2000s, like a lot of gatekeeping. But now we want as many people to see what we do as possible. We want to share the passion, and we want to grow the market.
Yeah, it's when people that I work with find out that I have snakes, they're like, boy, you don't even have like a mullet and,
Exactly.
A cut off flannel and all this, and it's like, dude, that's not what snake keepers are anymore, man.
Right. Like the number one guy in our industry, in my industry, ball pythons, is Justin Gabilka. He's a regular ass white dude. He's like a clean cut, regular white dude. He doesn't have a long ponytail. Again, there's nothing wrong with the ponytail reptile keepers. It's just the stereotype of reptile keepers back in the day, right? The ponytail, because again, back in the day, the most popular guys is Brian Barczyk, Kevin McCurley, these guys with the ponytails, long hair, just biker type white dudes. But now it's like just anyone. Just you can never tell who keeps reptiles anymore, right? Just any regular dude could be just a reptile keeper.
You mentioned, dealing with customer satisfaction and maintaining that relationship after the sale. What are some of what is the most common thing that you run into right now with first time keepers and getting that message back that something is going wrong?
So the unfortunate part is of YouTube and social media overall is there's so many experts. Everyone's an expert. They kept the ball pythons for 6 months. They Googled it, so they're an expert. So they're giving a lot of advice that is not backed up by any type of data or experience. So unfortunately, I have a lot of new keepers that'll buy a snake from us, and then they say, well, I saw this in a YouTube video, so I bought this radiant heat panel and or whatever, and a Mist King, and then they'll go to a pet store, and unfortunately the pet stores, if it's a terrible pet store, just wants to make money, and they'll sell them a Mist King, and they'll sell them reptile carpet, and they'll sell them all this other BS that's not necessary for that species, and bedding that's terrible for them, right? I've seen someone send me a picture before that ball python was on reptile calcium sand. I'm like, that literally is the worst thing you can get. But because calcium sand is good money, that pet store sold it to them. And I was like, man, you need to give me the phone number so I can call this pet store. But the pet stores are actually being better. They are getting better. They're being more reptile people are opening stores. So that really does help. But yeah, it's just bad information out there sometimes could definitely do it, but we're getting better at it. The market's getting better. People are calling out bad keepers. They're calling bad YouTubers out for having bad information. Then we need to continue to do that to help new keepers get better information to keep their animals better, and that will help us as breeders
so we don't have to have so much back end customer service of like, hey, don't put 2 reptile lamps on your ball pythons, you'll dry them out, stuff like that.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, Bob, I really appreciate your time. I know your time is valuable, and I know you've got your shirtless guests meandering about the house.
Yeah, we host a lot here. Sometimes my wife gets tired of it, and after a month, I give her some time off. But we host a lot here. We have a lot of foreign connections, so anytime they visit the U.S., I try to host them that way. When we visit other countries, they host us. So it's been phenomenal. We were able to visit all these countries, and anytime we visit, we have a place to stay or someone to take us out to the city or go eat and stuff like that. So I host a lot here for any of you guys watching. If you're from another country and you would like to visit the U.S. and come to Atlanta, let me show you the city and some beautiful restaurants. I'm actually about to take them to a traditional Chinese breakfast right now in Atlanta. So we're going to go check that out before we go to the show. Yeah, we enjoy it, man. And again, I breed ball pythons for a living, so I do have a good bit of spare time. It's like once they're fed, cleaned, and bred, there's not really much else to do. So I get to enjoy my weekends going herping and hosting people that share the same passion.
What's your target if you were to go to Australia? What's your target species you want to see?
I would love to see a black-headed python, which apparently are very common. So black-headed python, knobtail geckos. A Parenti would be like the dream, but that's like that's a unicorn of all species, would be a Parenti. I'm not really too keen on finding like an eastern brown snake or anything like that, but that would be cool. But a lot of lizard species for Australia will be a lot of lizard species, a lot of monitors. They have so many monitor species, frilled dragons, and obviously we'd have to visit Komodo Island right after that because it's nearby enough. They have so many cool lizard species in that area that I don't know that geckos, especially, they have so many knobtails of geckos and all these other geckos to see that I've seen in captivity. I would love to see in the wild, but yeah, that for Australia, it would be a lot more lizard species. And then when I go to Asia, it would be a lot more snake species, right? I've never seen a king cobra in the wild. I've never seen retics in the wild, stuff like that. So there's like stuff like that I would love to see. Those would be.
Have you seen berms in Florida?
I've seen berms in Florida. I've caught quite a few berms in Florida. The largest berm we've caught as a group was an 18-foot female. That was in 2021. And then because she was a gravid female in April, we knew she's going to lay roughly between May, June, July, something like that. So we actually went back in September and found hatchlings based on that pattern. But yeah, I found berms, I found chameleons, I found tokays, boas, stuff like that. And then we went to Puerto Rico 2023, and we found boas there. We found red-tailed boas that were ran over on the road. We found Puerto Rican boas, stuff like that. I'm actually going back to Costa Rica in December, so that'll be a really fun trip. We're going to do it in the north side of the country. So yeah, it's quite the adventure. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything else. And now because we have the Brits here, Scott Wilkinson is a very avid herper. He's herped all around the world, and we're trying to plan a Madagascar trip for next year. So it's going to be be a really good 2026.
Awesome, man. And so when is the next Southeast Reptile Expo?
The next Southeast Reptile Expo is going to be on January 31st and February 1st that weekend. We're hoping for good weather. Last year we had snow, so I project that we won't get snow for another 3 years. So fingers crossed for that. And then the one after that will be August 1st and 2nd. So we just have 2 shows a year. One location. So when people are like, "Oh, you're a big show promoter," I'm like, "No. I have one show. I'm not a show.
Yeah.
I'm not doing reptile shows. We have one show in Atlanta, and we're just gonna do that to the best of our abilities."
Hell yeah, man. Well, I hope to make it up there to one of them. It'd be worth the plane ticket to come and check it out.
Yeah, come out. Again, the drive would be terrible, right? Because you're so far south in Florida. But yeah, it's like less than 2-hour flight up to Atlanta, and it would be fun.
Yeah, I think it's it would probably be, I think it's about 7 hours for me to get to Atlanta from where I'm at. So it's it's a bit of a haul.
Yeah, if you decide to drive, if you're ever driving through, if you're just driving through Atlanta, let me know. I'm 2 minutes off I-75. So it's
hell yeah.
Just stop right in and check out the facility if you want to. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. That sounds good. All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Enjoyed it.